Good day. Today I'm going to cover the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation. They are proposing a strategic plan, as you see here, and the plan will be before the Board of Trustees during their quarterly meeting on February 15th through the 16th, 2024. So all people are available to publicly comment, but what I wanted to do today is give you some commentary on our analysis of this plan. Real quick here, if you go to Swifty.com, if you're a subscriber, you can actually access all of the sovereign wealth funds by just going under search entities, and you can do add a filter, and we can select sovereign wealth fund as a type. Oops. And you can build a list of sovereign wealth funds, or we can search for just US based ones, right? So we're going to do search, location, let's go with the United States. Again, I have sovereign wealth fund, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation. So now I'm on the profile of the Alaska Permanent Fund as that loads right here. And what's really neat is we have a team of analysts globally where you can go in and get information on this sovereign wealth fund. There's a website, you can look at the legal name, LEI, all that fun stuff, as well as the contact information. As I scroll over here, you can see we have news coming out, contact information, as well as a documents tab. So those memos that we talked about, those are saved here. All right, so let's go over and let's see what their plan is. So it's the 2024 strategic plan for the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation. Again, they're seeking public comment, right? This is a state fund that's open to its citizens. The new head of the fund, well, relatively new head of the fund, is Devin Mitchell. He's the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of APFC. All right, so the objective of the plan, the mission is to manage and invest the assets of the permanent fund and other funds designated by state law. The vision, of course, is to deliver outstanding returns for the benefit of all current and future generations of Alaska. So for those unfamiliar with the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation, it was created, it was voted on by voters 2-1 in 1976, right? It was a constitutional amendment that authorized the Alaska legislature to create the Alaska Permanent Fund, basically taking some of that oil revenue and saving it and creating a dividend for its state citizens. And it's run by a board of trustees, okay? And like I said, it is one of many state permanent funds we have in the United States. So usually board of trustees, again, they want to seek public comment on these types of things. And as they project and they see, they want to grow the fund to $100 billion. Now, I'm actually going to skip to their presentation and go over what their plan is right here. So they want to grow the fund to $100 billion. You know, it's around $77–80 billion right now. $100 billion. You know, it was really, if we go back in time, you can kind of see how the fund was, you know, 50 billion, 40, you know, back in 2010, it was only $34 billion. So this fund is on its way to growing quite large. $100 billion is becoming a major sovereign wealth fund, you know, being compared to the other ones, the Gulf-based sovereign wealth funds. Well, they're a lot bigger. But in terms of how they manage their money, you know, using private equity funds, using credit funds, hedge funds, etc., you know, a sort of similar strategy there. So they expect that the fund's going to grow to $100 billion. And what they want to do is build an endowment-style sovereign wealth fund. All right. So what is an endowment-style sovereign wealth fund? That wealth fund could be compared to Singapore's GIC Private Limited, and that could be compared to the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. An endowment-style sovereign wealth fund is taking the Yale University endowment-style approach. David Swensen, the late David Swensen, who was the CIO of the Yale Endowment for quite some time, adopted the endowment-style approach, basically betting a lot on private markets, private equity, private credit, now venture capital. All right. So this type of management style, it can generate higher returns because you're using private markets, but it requires a larger investment team that will have the experience to understand certain private market strategies and be able to pick out private market funds versus if I'm going to pick a mutual fund or a fixed income fund from a traditional fund manager, BlackRock's, right, of the world, the Fidelities of the world. Okay, so this requires again a much more uh, higher level, educated, experienced set of investment professionals to manage this type of portfolio. Now, obviously, they're going to have investment consultants that will recommend funds, but you will also need to build staff capability within that organization. Okay, so that's what they're saying right here. They want to build an endowment style sovereign wealth fund to grow the fund to $100 billion. The consideration of additional targeted and limited use of leverage, outperformance through the generation of alpha. So really look at the private markets, develop asset class level strategic plans aligned to the goal. Also, what they're going to be covering in this plan is improve corporate functionality. And that relates in selecting the executive director. There was controversy on the last executive director and how that person was let go. And so they probably want to have more transparency there in that process. Also, key person risk, right? Just like in a private investment firm or hedge fund, you have key investment people. Same thing could be said when you're running a sovereign wealth fund. You have key people that run the sovereign wealth fund. If something happens to them, God forbid, an accident or they can't do their job, an emergency, what policies do you have in place? What mechanisms do you have in place to quickly have informational sharing among the team and be able to keep the fund running? Also, the incentive structure, the comp structure of your staff, right? You have one hand, you are a governmental organization where your salaries are usually public. Maybe your bonuses aren't, but every citizen can see your salary. And at the same time, you want to attract talented people to your organization and be able to compensate them. This would be akin to, let's say you have a university football coach from a public college, right? They get paid a salary, and then their salary might be higher than the president of the university. And so that's not controversial in sports, but when it comes to investments and finance, it is controversial. So, and also, what happens if this investment officer doesn't do well? They pick a bad manager and lose a bunch of money, right? And they're getting paid this very high salary. So, government jobs typically are under a microscope, right? Especially if it's a taxpayer funded role. Now, this is a role that's managing a state owned fund. Also, explore the benefits. They want to explore the benefits of having satellite offices. So for Alaska, they work out of Juneau. And one challenging part of that is being up north is that there's a lack of sunlight. It's a small town, right? So you are limiting yourself on attracting talent versus being in a place like New York, Miami, Dallas, San Francisco, right, where people might want to move there. So that is always the concern when it comes to these sovereign wealth funds, and that's why sometimes they have these satellite offices, right, where they might have employees elsewhere. In addition, also if you're going to be an international investor and you're going to actually make large direct co-investments and really want to monitor your portfolio, it would make sense to have boots on the ground in those various territories where you can see what's going on. So opening up a London office to oversee Europe, Middle East, Africa, opening up an office in maybe Singapore, Hong Kong, where you can have the APAC region there, or you can even be more specific to a market such as China with Beijing, Shanghai, or with India, Mumbai, Tokyo, right? Wherever you're going to deploy a significant amount of capital, it would make sense. Now, there are costs to that. There's also a lot of legal ramifications too, and you will have to be able to monitor people all around the world. It's truly a global enterprise. There are costs to that. and so that will, it could be very expensive. Now the Canadian pension plans and large sovereign wealth funds, they have been doing this. So Alaska wants to explore this option. Also enhance their data management capabilities. Yes, this is something that we see is that more asset owners, they are spending a lot more money on data and research versus just going to a fund manager and taking their, which they already do, but really, getting all the data providers, the pricing transparency, mark to market, it's becoming a bigger budget for these asset owners, especially when you have tens of $billions at risk. You really want to have all the intelligence that you can. So for SWFE, what we do is we provide intelligence on global asset owners. We track what they do. We track where they invest, who works there, who they work with, their counterparties, the deals they do. We also track future RFPs, opportunities on where they're going to deploy capital. And so it's good to see what your peers are doing if you're an asset owner. That's why we have a lot of asset owner clients that subscribe to our product called the SWFI subscription. So let's also go down and let's first tackle on growing the fund to $100 billion. So let's look at that. How can you grow the fund to $100 billion? Well, you want to use leverage. Okay, so it's a deadly word when it comes to a public fund, leverage. Now, the California State Teachers Retirement System, they're considering leverage on some of their stuff. You have the Canadian pension plans, they use leverage. They will go tap bond markets, and since they're backed by the government, they have, that helps with their credit rating, and they use that to improve their returns. Same thing can be used for Mubadala Capital. They also tap markets. Khazanah, I believe, does too as well. Wait, I have to double check on that one. But I know Temasek and the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, they will raise debt. So yes, leverage is something. They are considering 5 to 10% of the fund. So if the fund's $100 billion, $10 billion worth of leverage. And that is to maximize the returns. It's pursuant to a change in state law, and it'll take many years. So the Alaska legislature will have to buy off on this and really make the case for them, right? Because they have the permanent fund dividends that they want to give out every year. Also, the outperformance through the generation of alpha, right? I mean, we all want alpha, and that's reviewing each asset class and strategy and the investment philosophies of those asset classes. And that's an all staff. That will include all the staff of the APFC. And then the third thing is develop asset class level strategic plans aligned to the goals, right? So it's reviewing the asset classes, documenting the risks of those asset classes. How do you deploy capital to those asset classes? And so again, that's part of this $100 billion plan, right? Will have to make some tweaks on their asset forecasting. Will equities continue to generate those returns in 2023 and 2024 and 2025? Will you rely more on private markets? Will there be some tectonic shifts in private markets? That is all to be said, and that's why they do these asset forecasting. The other thing that they're working on and they want feedback is improve corporate functionality. So now we're going on the money management realm to the actual how the sovereign wealth fund's being run. How is the entity being managed, right? What are the controls and processes you're going to put in place? One is the Open Meetings Act, limited to the executive director's selection. That's pursuant to state law. Again, I haven't personally done a lot of research on that, so I'm going to skip that one, but that's regarding on one position, the executive director role at APFC. Number 2 is key person risk, additional incentive compensation structure. This is a very controversial measure that's debated in state legislature, right? How are you going to pay people to be competitive to the private market? But yet again, you are a public servant. By working at these asset owners, you are a de facto public servant. And so how much money should people be getting paid? I worked at CalPERS, right? I saw some things where people were highly compensated, in my opinion, for what I was making at the time, for what they were really doing. And that can be kind of controversial, right? What is a person actually doing? What is talent, right? And so those things um, have to be debated. So we will look at those things. Also, reviewing the current status quo. Consider what changes to budget flexibility. Right? How much money do these people have in their budget? How much can they pay these people? What salary ranges are will be permitted, and more importantly, is the bonus pool. Right? I would always recommend, and some funds do this, is having a bonus pool that's multi-year, not 1 year. You don't want to have a bonus pool where they're going to game and go into higher risk strategies and put the fund at risk. You want to have a multi-year a multi-year compensation structure. That's what I would do. And then again, going into U.S. and international offices, they're looking at assessing the value of an office in Anchorage, which is a bigger city in Alaska. It's not the capital, but it's a bigger city. Is the capital, um, and evaluating other offices. Maybe have an office in New York, and then also enhancing data management capabilities. Right. Oh man, artificial intelligence technologies. So if you are an AI company to finance, get ready. You're making some money right now. There's some spend in that. Plan, procure, implement these types of technology. So asset owners are going to have to staff up their IT capabilities. That means hiring more IT, finance, IT professionals onto your team, and to be able to understand how these products can help your investment workflow, how these investment products can mitigate risk within the portfolio context. And the third thing that they want to talk about is a communication plan and fund structure. So in-state mission of education and awareness, informing the populace, the Alaskans, of what the fund's about. This is a great thing. It's always good to educate the citizens of the state or country on how government works, whether it's legislature or what the APFC does. A nationwide focus on investment performance and strategy. So they want to procure a global consultant to help with this, to talk about their investment strategies and how they can, keep pushing that along the path. Third thing is review and assess optimal structure of the fund. So that will be interesting. I will have to look more into that. All right. So again, those are the three topics that the Alaska Permanent Fund wants to do. It's all on their website. If you want to go to the website, we also have it on SWFI.com. You can download the docs there. But that's the APFC 2024 strategic plan that they want to talk about, right? Again, you can go to their site right here and actually read through it. And the Alaska, we've rated this fund a 10 in transparency. They are really on the cutting edge of showing what they do, and they even have, you can even look at their board recordings if you want to go watch these videos, and you can see, really neat here. They have packets that the board produces, and you can actually see what they talk about. Right, this is a December meeting. Again, this is going back in time. They actually have the text written down, so you can see what the CIO said, what the commissioner said, and really get a lot of insight into this fund here. You will not get this with the Gulf Sovereign Wealth funds. They do not publish their meetings to the public, so you can't really see it. But really good to get detail here. They have their investment consultant reports, which I find really useful because it kind of gives you a really good overview of the market and basically where the fund has, made money and lost money, where they're putting money right now. And just to kind of end this talk here, you can also see just on their September asset allocation where they have their money. 32, and again, we mentioned this endowment style: 32% public equities, 18% fixed income, 20% private equity and special opportunities, 11% in real estate, private income 9%, absolute return 7%, and total cash there. And then you can kind of see, a further breakout of it, right? Whether it's tips, domestic equity, international equity, and what's worked out and what hasn't worked out. So with that being said, I want to keep this video short. This is just going to cover the latest APF presentation on the special report. Again, if you want to learn more about SWFI, it's SWFI.com, swinstitute.org, or you can follow me on Twitter at Sovereign Funds. Have a great day. Bye.